We're live. Okay, thank you for um, checking out this session again. And this should be part four of our continuing series. It's been a long stretch. I hope you've been with me, but hey, we're trying to build worlds here. So if you think about it, if we're trying to build worlds, and it takes some doing to build worlds, and that's what we're doing here. So don't mind if we keep going. Okay, so one of the main aspects of uh, the world building is the immediate world. I alluded to this part of the miracle year world building in the previous session, that you sort of start with circles, your cohorts, and for some of us, we will be trying to build the most powerful cohorts that we can because our ambitions are that great. We intend to, in the words of Steve Jobs, make a dent in the universe. We have issues with some of the status quo. My philosophy on our some of our current, some of the excesses of our current capitalist order is that we have sold the societies to our system that was supposed to serve our society. I think that that's true for us here in the United States, that we have leaned over the side from capitalism that works into toxic capitalism, from regulated capitalism to rentier state capitalism, where some powerful players have set in motion flywheels that result in governance that basically creates a corporate socialism, and leaves very little to none for actual citizens. But corporate socialism is just another, and corporate welfare too. Um, More, yeah, let's call it corporate welfare. I think that's more accurate. But a corporate welfare state is just an elite welfare state. And so for me, I believe that this movement to create matrix certified matrixpreneurs, people who are able to call other people and invite other people in to search and research value propositions, partnership propositions, offer propositions, proposals in a safe setting, while increasingly doubling down on successes. That this is a real, this is potentially, if it propagates, is a movement in and of itself that gives us a chance to construct from the grassroots a more collective uh, um, profit from our capitalism. If we can slowly set up infrastructures where we are hitting it big, 15, 20, 30, 50, 60 of us at a time, and not as hands off investors who are making decisions disconnected from the places where the people are buying, from the places where we live, but who are embedded in the communities, especially at least embedded in the interests of people, rather than the interests of fake entities whose sole reason to exist is to protect the hoarded resources of old money. That will not serve, a healthy economy is made up of healthy demand and healthy supply, and circulating currencies and circulating resources, and a high and active facilitated flow of exchange. A financialized economy that is divorced from the real economy, divorced from the from divorced from everyday um, commodities, divorced from everyday buying power, is dangerous in the long term. And we have to find our ways to solving some of those challenges. We really have to. I think that collective building circles with entrepreneurial focus, and eventually with capital raising and capital allocation focus, can help us solve that impasse. And I mean what I said earlier, that the next Silicon Valley will be virtual. What made Silicon Valley was not just that it was not just Fairchild's terrible eight, traitorous eight, who spread out and became, because, and not just the brilliance, not just that there was high world class educational institutions and there was cheap land and various other helpful factors. I think the biggest reason why Silicon Valley became the Silicon Valley of today, a tightly knit, mutually enabling ecosystem of innovation, was that the earliest winners were liberally minded in funding, in releasing and supporting those who were breaking off, leaving their companies, starting new companies, and they were funding them. That's the unusual aspect that blew up, that set the Silicon Valley flywheel. And for me, this September strategy and the launch circles, the beginning circles that you build, are the beginnings of such an ecosystem if we have the right philosophies that can be catalytic to others. So, what does that mean in very basic terms? When we start with the September Strategy Challenge, I will have already been on my own challenge, and I will have already exposed, or I will have already offered some of my audience members the opportunity to participate in what we refer to as play circles, which are that play in this context stands for Platform Launch Activation Year. In the last session, I told you about the September year game, in which the September year is a stretched year, a year of 12 quarters, in which we will challenge ourselves to have episodic careers in each quarter, like to do enough, or to initiate enough, or to innovate enough, or to trigger enough that we get a year's size results in the week, in the quarters. Over the next 12 quarters, I intend to execute for your benefits, for demonstration purposes, the trajectory that runs from audience building activations all the way to acquisitions. And I think it's really important to illustrate this. Part of me coming here and doing this broadcast and these sessions is to put out into the world my intention, and to encourage you who's watching to put out your own intention, to not just build in public, but to challenge yourself in public, to commit to a platform building set of activities, and to execute on that. That will give you more momentum than sitting here and thinking for the next few weeks about a snappy title for a landing page or a snappy title, because you're going to get feedback. You're going to eventually start interacting because of the ideas you're putting out there. You're going to start interacting with real life individuals, people with wants, people with needs, people with opinions, and some of those opinions you may not like. You may not like the opinions that are expressed, but yes, that's part of the game. And it's okay. If you do it long enough, you will gain wisdom. An acumen flywheel will begin to emerge. The late great Jim Rohn, great motivational speaker and business philosopher, as he liked to call himself, said and used to say, if you do something often enough, a ratio will appear. Um, One of my mentors has made a repeated point that most of the people who drop out of their entrepreneurial pursuits, or who are not achieving the goals that they set out to achieve, are having problems of volume. They're not giving enough reps to their attempts. They're not given the sample size of their tests that they hope to lead to their success is not enough. So you want to pay attention to how many trials you're giving to the thing you think could work. Don't call 5 people or 7 people and be discouraged when nobody gives you a positive response. Call 150, call 200, depending on the time frame, call 2000. You need a sample size, you need enough reps, you need enough volume that you can trust the decisions that you are going to make on the back of your attempt. So going back to the beginnings, I started out in the earlier session. I mentioned that after you have connected to your big dream, you have to take bites. So your big dream, then bite-sized steps. So it's not enough to have your big dream. You have to sort of reverse engineer backward from the big dream in projects, quarterly projects, if you're feeling this system, um, and in steps, framework steps, journey steps, back to where you are now. This could be depending on how big your dream is and how many pieces are involved out of your control or in your control. This could be something that is done within a week, or it could be something that takes you a few weeks to nail down. But don't let it take too long, because what you're doing is more of an emergent journey than an engineered path. So something catches your fancy, something, go go back to the old ikigai system, looking for something at the intersection of something you love, something you're good at, and something that the world is willing to pay you good for. If you already have a clear preference in your path of who to deal with, who to serve, and what problem to solve for them, you're well ahead. I had some videos, some of my old videos on this channel address isolating a particular profile, um, connecting some of the problems they have with some of what you have, what you can solve, or what you think you can learn to solve by looking at the problem. If the key to overnight expertise and overnight mastery is to scope a problem so narrowly that it's narrow and it still causes pain, but it's so narrow that you can gain expertise and you can solve it fairly quickly. You can learn how to solve it fairly quickly. So you think about who it is you're going to serve. It might be somebody who shares the same professional background as you. It might be somebody who shares the same demographic profile as you. It might be somebody who shares some of the same pain points as you, so that you're double dipping when you start researching to solve your own pain points. You're solving the pain points of a potential future customer profile or a bunch of them. And when you have come to this point, you want to leave the safety of your library and the safety of your nest, and you want to engage the future marketplace, and you want to start validating some of the concepts that you've come up with. One of the great ways to do that is to set up a simple platform test, see if they'll buy. Outseta, which calls itself a membership software, and is a really versatile platform, has a system for letting you pull people into the payment checkout page, have them pay or think they've paid, but not collect the payment, or collect their card information but not collect the payment until you've communicated with them and say, hey, you know what, I see you paid, but actually we've not drawn the money because we wanted to communicate with you and we wanted to figure out if this is something that you're willing to pay for. But there are other ways to do it, and the main thing is you need to this is where some of those, you need to go on a question and an ask and a validation sprint. You need to go on a validation challenge. Find over 100 of those people that would be your good customers and reach out to them and find out if they're willing to buy. And as you get going, you're going to face rejection and refusal. Actually, you're going to face refusal. Refusal is not always rejection. But as you keep going, you're going to get smarter. You're going to build an acumen flywheel of what the pain points that really connect to them. And your script is going to get better. And your offering will probably undertake a small evolution or a major pivot. The point is you're getting feedback from the real world. This is the most powerful thing you can do. Even for your circle building, your hook. If you went out there and asked, said, hey, if I had this group with this aim and it's called this, is this something that you're ready to join when the doors open? And getting that feedback and then activating a process behind it, an improvement process or decision process, is going to help you, is going to let you avoid a lot of wasted efforts and sometimes wasted money, wasted expectations, which can be emotional damage from wasted expectations can be crushing and can actually halt your efforts. So you got to watch your energy and be careful and use this simple wisdom of validation to prevent or preempt the possibility that you just start losing energy and burning out. Burnout is not good for your billions, okay? Like, this is not the way you're going to build your fortune. Now, so we start out with this, with the smallest circle around you, and then you want to build communities. Communities are interesting. One of the first virtual communities I came across that really impressed me was, a few decades ago, and it was Dan Kennedy's herd, as he called it. It basically was making a case that we were the sheep and he had a nice fence around us. And one of the important things was to realize about how you build a tribe is that you build it the same way, to a significant extent. The same way you build a tribe is the same way you build a business. There has to be message to market to medium or channel match. You go to the places like you don't start a book club with people who have not read a book for the last 10 years. Even if you were Maxwell Sackheim, who came up with the membership of the month concept or popularized it, you're going to fail if your entire crowd that you're pitching your book club is full of people who don't read books. So the message is important, it's of utmost importance. The market is important, or else nothing goes. But the channel is important, the medium. And this is the foundation. If you can form a fit, the people that you look for who are on Facebook, you go to Facebook and set up there. The people who are to be found on LinkedIn, you go to LinkedIn and find them there. And when they're there, you you craft your message, you adjust your offer in ways that are congruent to being on LinkedIn. For instance, a LinkedIn Maven recently uh, disclosed that LinkedIn is significantly invested in native video, not people sending LinkedIn people out to YouTube, but video that is happening on LinkedIn that keeps LinkedIn users on LinkedIn. It makes sense that it's being favored by LinkedIn. So respecting the medium enough to make sure that the parameters of success and that the leverage is on your side rather than against you is very important. Building communities is also about shared purpose, shared vision. It's about articulating a version of the future that resonates with the group that you're dealing with. And I think it's important. It's important to understand that if you don't articulate that vision in your group, anybody who articulates the vision for you is going to splinter off that group and take them away. You have to work on knowing what's the bigger purpose. Bigger purpose really attracts people. It's the version of your unique selling proposition that is meant to instigate, provoke involvement in the commodities that we have that you can't buy with money. Support, followership, co-ownership, willingness to pay in of my soul, of my emotions, to invest a little bit of myself in the growth of a community that I am only going to watch monetized by somebody else. The payment for me is the idea that this community will that this community has the opportunity, and it gives me a better chance to see a shared vision, potential, a promised future realized, and I get to be part of that. Having said that, that's not enough. You have to do some of the same things that you would do if you are onboarding a customer, if you are onboarding a client. Actually, the model that I'm teaching you of business, even in business, is to treat your clients and your customers as a community member, a member of your community. So you make sure that the onboarding process is really tight, sharp, and on point. You watch their post-purchase experience to make sure that your risk reversals and your post-purchase reassurance is timely and doesn't leave room for them to doubt the decision they have just made. You want to reduce churn. You want to join with them and fight against their doubts and their fears. The bigger vision, especially when it comes to the business aspect, is to get so familiar with a profile, with a target customer profile, with a target client profile, that you see the dreams that they have, that you associate and empathize deeply with their long run transformational aspiration, and you take care of the gaps between where they are and where that aspiration, that version of them is. And the first gap is not the gap of actually providing them the infrastructure or the services. The first gap is an idea gap, is a framework gap, is a map gap. How they're thinking sometimes in a way that is not articulated by them, sometimes in a way that they're not conscious of, but they're thinking or feeling, how do I get from here to that place? And if you can provide superior articulation of how they're feeling now in the present state, how the challenges they're facing, the conflicts, the internal dialogue, the internal conflicts, what a teacher of mine called the secret whisperers, and then and then the silent priorities, in the words of Dr. Adrian Slowodsky. If you can nail these down, then suddenly, guess what it allows you to do? It gives you the language to come up with a framework, a solution framework, a transformation framework, an aspiration bridging framework, a journey narrative, whatever it is. Two, when you have done that, even if just rhetorically describing a journey for them that resonates, you will have tremendous credibility. The kind of credibility that actually allows you to pre-sell, even if you have no resources. It allows you to become the partner with the people that you hope to sell to. And you turn them into unofficial investors in the product that they're going to buy from you. So, but how do you get there? How do you get this level of articulation that you can really speak to their fears, you can speak to their frustrations, you can speak to their hopes and their aspirations, their dreams. You can identify and surface to them their roadblocks, their internal blocks and their external barriers, and you can preempt their objections and their obstacles, and do so in a way that is transparent, that doesn't take their focus from the fact of the journey. Now, I'll give you some interesting idea. There's a magnetic force, not gravity, but there is a magnetic force that you can activate in your persuasion system, in your attraction system, when you really want to bring these people in. And you know what it is? It's them. If you've done a good job of listening, if you've done a good job of researching, if you've done a good job of going to Amazon and reading through the comments of books that are relevant or that are attempting to answer their problems, to see what people like them are saying. If you've gone to the YouTube videos and you've trawled through the comments, reading through, listening for their words, their tones, you've gone to Reddit and you're reading the conversation that they're having with each other, trying to understand it, categorizing how their feelings, their logic that they're following, their level of sophistication, their exposure, the ideas that have been sold to them in the past that did not work, that are part of their baggage now. If you know all this by doing superior customer research and insight work, guess what happens? You will also know what pulls them forward. The artificial gravity that will drive them to support you is their desire to have or to see realized that aspiration. So if you nail the aspiration, it creates its own gravity that can help you even fund the entire interaction with them as your co-partners, pre-selling to them and them pre-buying. And if you nail it that way, then you have broken the cold start problem, the chicken before the egg problem that says, well, I haven't built it yet, and for me to build it, I need the money. For me to get the money, I need to build it so that they can buy it. You break that by being able to pre-sell, and you pre-sell out of the desire to believe that comes from them. That desire to believe will only be activated when you paint their dream almost in 3D. And what I just told you is why some of the best copywriters make so much money in the millions and millions, are able to command royalties and all sorts of arrangements. It's because of this simple truth that you can replace gravity in a magnetic way. So building communities also means that you're building connection. You in particular as the leader and your team, if you have one, are building connections, making sure that when people come in first, they're reached out to and they have a human connection, and you know what the metrics are for people to be activated when they come in and join your group. You know what it means for somebody to be wanting and willing to stay when they are onboarded. You know what the signs are for somebody who's going to go through, and whose lifetime value is going to reach a certain minimum threshold. You have to pay serious attention to your onboarding, serious attention to the experience that the people get when they come. Because you've worked so hard, you've thought up the idea, you've tied in your identity, you've reached through your backstory, you have created a differentiated positioning in the midst of a crowd of influencers and would-be influencers, and you finally got here. People who are already your customers are so much more valuable than the person you're spending marketing to go get. They're much more likely to refer, they're much more likely to repeat purchase, and they're much more likely to stay longer, especially if they were brought in by a referral from somebody who behaves like that. So if it's the most expensive part of your marketing is going out there to get somebody from the wilds and bring them into the shelter. It's costly. They have to see you. You have to pay for advertising, visibility, public relations, promotions, partner promotions, paid advertising, affiliates who get a hefty commission. So it's really important for you, if you understand that one of the easiest way, well, I wouldn't say easiest, but one of the most straightforward ways to fix the unit economics in your business or to fix the momentum spiral in your community is to take extra special care of those who have come in from the cold, who have knocked on the door, been let in. They probably paid you some money. They've definitely paid you some attention, and now they're in. Don't let them go, because treating them well, keeping them longer, having them refer, having them graduate from new entry to eventual partner and ambassador will pay your business, will pay your community growth significantly. Now, now that's at the community level. We have in the September strategy setup, when you come in, you're going to be coming in as basically as part of the Play Summits and as part of the Play program. In January, we're going to launch the platform launch year. And I want you to remember what I said about this September year game. It is a fractal game. It is a fluid year. It is a year that shrinks and expands. So the platform launch year is actually a breakdown of 4 quarters of activity that takes you from 0 to authority. And it is designed to fit seamlessly into your 12-week, your 12 quarters, into your 12-quarter expedition, into your 12-quarter asymmetrical ascent, asymmetrical transformation journey. The platform launch year breaks down loosely, depending on who you are and what you're up to activation. To the first phase being activation, the second phase being amplification, a third phase being acceleration, and then in the fourth phase, association and acquisition. Now, and that is going through the entire entrepreneurial life cycle, from the beginning where you activate your voice and your positioning, where you determine which who it is you're serving, what framework drives them forward, whether it's for a solution, a transformation, or closing an aspirational gap. You operationalize that framework, meaning you're determining what deliverables do they get. Do they get done for you services? Do they get connection? Do they get membership into a community? Do they get experiences? Do they get content, media? Do they get physical products? Is it a hybrid situation? And when you've operationalized the value that they're getting and how the value they're getting is moving them along that journey, you've solved a very big problem. Going from activation to amplification is the difference between figuring out your big idea and then launching your coaching, consulting, or creator business. Alchemy takes place. You're changing the assets you brought in, your intellectual property, your story, your backstory, your life. You're changing it into another form. It probably now takes the form of courses. It takes the form of a content editorial calendar. It takes the form of your wisdom shared across 12 weeks or shared across 12 months. And your wisdom deployed not just on your website, but deployed in the platforms that you are part of, and bringing them back to you, bringing them back to the part of your system where you share some of the value that you get a piece back of some of the value that you've forwarded out into the world. We call it a business model. Alex Hormozy in his upcoming book basically calls it a money model. If you look at this kind of framework, using Alex Hormozy, his first book was on offers, his second book was on leads, and his third book is on funnels. That's what he calls money models, is just funnels. It's basically, how do you make sure that you set up an architecture of offerings so that there's a revenue engine paying for the rest, making it affordable for you to serve the people so that they're happy to stay, to spend more, and eventually become ambassadors or partners, and designing a staircase for them to walk up so that they go from newcomer who doesn't know what you're doing all the way to partners who are maybe even when you have super affiliates getting 70% or 60% of every sale that they generate, they have become pseudo partners. They are ambassador partners. So that's the whole context. They're coming in from out of the cold, and they're becoming closer and closer, more intimately associated with your brand, with your framework, with your message, and they're getting your deliverables, and they have become repeat customers, and they have an entire life cycle, and now they're partners of yours, feeding the top of the funnel and feeding the bottom of the journey that they've just gotten to the top of. It's very important that you take this graduation from circle to community and to collective, and you operationalize it. Now, what we're going to do with the platform launch year concept is that you go from challenge to challenge. You build the cohorts, you build the circles, you build the communities. At the end of that process, what we will be doing is forming a community that involves not just creators, but acquirers, capital raisers, compounders. The ultimate goal is that you are a compounder yourself. That term comes from the world of micro private equity. And when we say that you're a compounder, if you remember from the first session, I talked about being a competent cloud rider, somebody who's able to navigate the paradoxes, or what Goldratt called the conflict clouds. And you're able to have, in stage one, you are this kind of entrepreneur, this kind of leader. And then the transition from stage one to stage two requires you to maybe shift and manage the dilemma from you being the doer to being the delegator? Can you manage that transition? What infrastructure, personal and interactional, have you built to prepare for that? Can you build challenges and sprints? Can you form a cohort of people who have a similar challenge so that you are growing together? Because that's what enables you. This is not easy. If it was easy, would have already done it. Everybody would have done it. It's actually not easy. There's a book that talks about the opposable mind and having an opposable mind, being able to hold contradictory ideas in your brain at the same time. I believe that some of that opposable mind system is required for this kind of spiral writing, for being able to make the adaptation where you're going from one type of paradigm to the others. And if you understand that that's what you're doing and that that's what the asymmetrical journey calls for, and you have a cohort that is undergoing the same challenges with you, you have a rare proving ground. Where I live in the East Coast of the United States in Maryland, I'm basically 30 minutes away from Aberdeen Proving Ground. Many of the military industrial companies in the world uh, come to test their materials, their weaponry over here in the proving ground. You want to build a proving ground of your own making, and you want that to be the system along which you're graduating, rather than depending on um, the proven success advertising of the gurus, because this is not the challenge you're facing. Is that every copywriter worth their salt, every maven who's creating their programs is selling the proven success model. I shared with you that the proven success model just introduces you to a red ocean. When you go in and you buy a course that says this is proven, you are saying, oh, I'm happy to be one of 2,000 people who are going to compete with the same frameworks on the same terms and oftentimes towards the same marketplace. It is not a good idea. It's not the good idea that you might have thought when you were reading the sales letter or watching the VSL or going through the launch process. That is actually a very bad idea. There is a toxic preference for convenience that has been sold so much that it's become a conditioning. And that conditioning is going to keep you from pioneer profits. If you if you remember from the book Blue Ocean Strategy, the whole idea was thinking through value curves and lining them up, combining them such that you're able to present something that is different from what the majority of players in your situation are doing. How are you going to create a blue ocean out of something that has been sold to you and 2,000 others? So don't play that game, opt out of that game. Now, here's what's the catch. The catch is that you are more liable to experience some setbacks. Let's call those small fails. Because if you have been following the logic of the system that we've been talking about for the last few sessions, then you are going to be conducting your tests or these sprints or projects. You're going to be conducting them in small bunches, in survivable forms. You don't want to do anything that you can you don't want to experience a setback that derails your search for traction and you can't come back from it. So you have the context, you have the cohort, and now you have a way to run your sprint, validate your assumptions, surface your assumptions, get external world feedback, get feedback from the people you hope to be your users before you go trying to get your VIP, your dream client profile. Um, you really have to pay attention to this. Some of the mavens that you may have heard about talk about the Dream 100. You can't squander your Dream 100 on unvalidated frameworks. You can't do that. There's no way to go forward that way. So I hope that you'll listen to this part. Um, they're basically going to be three-part. I want you to stay tuned to this sequence. We're gonna shut it down for now, but um, the launch date is September 9th. Subscribe now so that we can notify you of the play program, the platform launch program, and you can be part of the insider launch. Between September, we're going to run that, and then in November, a few months from now, we're going to have the pre-launch process for January's actual public launch of the platform launch year. If you are interested in the September strategy challenges, go ahead and reach out. You can make the comments as well, and we'll get back to you with your contact. But if you just stay tuned here and go through the pre-launch process, you'll be equipped to actually run some of these sprints for yourself, to test out some of the frameworks and the principles and get the materials. Don't wait to join up in a red ocean race. That doesn't make sense, but it's been sold as the default. I hope that when we talked about the matrix world building, and we talked about going stepwise from misfit to maker to a master builder and the maven, the core frameworks, the core protocols that will enable this kind of journey for you is to play a very neat squad game, to engage in the sprints. I mentioned the Seinfeld method, and don't do them in a disconnected or sporadic way. They have to be connected to your September year. They have to be connected to your spiral year. Play a big game, play a longer game. Accept that some of the challenge of that game is going to be you taking some risks, you facing some of the possibility of failure, and knowing that you're going from failure aversion to failure alchemy. We talked about a few ways that you can weaponize those setbacks, weaponize those fails. They're not complete fails. They're just setbacks. They're learning experiences. You're building a flywheel of acumen. Before you can build a flywheel of capital, you got to build a flywheel of acumen and learning. You got to have a systematic way to double down on what works, and what wasn't validated to let it go. You also are building your character as somebody who can ride the spiral. And riding the spiral means Marshall Goldsmith has a book with the title that says, "What got you here won't get you there." And I think that that chaotic principle really illustrates it. Managing the dilemmas when when the problems can't be solved. Managing the dilemmas of counterintuitive competencies that mark the difference between you and the mogul that you admire. How do you learn to ignore a problem until it gets big enough to qualify for your attention? You learn it from apprenticeship. You learn it from mentorship. You learn it from connection. You learn it from your nervous system seeing and watching how the other person has managed that same dilemma and basically doing the work subconsciously. You don't learn it from a book or a course. It's contextual, not concept. And so if that's what you're willing to do, then go stepwise. take your time. At the very top of this ladder, we will be building a new virtual cohort that doesn't just involve specialists, but every specialty that is associated with the four doors Naval Ravikant spoke about. We can recreate our own version of it with acquirers, with capital, with code, with content, and with client service acumen. You can take the cases of Andrew Wilkinson, who scaled up to where he is today from influencer, which is audience builder, to agency model, and from agency model to acquirer. Or you can check out the Alex Hormozi path, which was basically from service provider, the other end of the spectrum, to essentially agency to licensing, and licensing the SOPs and the systems from an agency type of service to acquirer. And there are a couple of other paths. Ryan Levesque, you can see that there are a lot of, actually, Russell Brunson of ClickFunnels, you can see that he travels a path from audience builder, everyday influencer, to agency, to automator, and from automator at the scale that when you have a SaaS business, you have something that is a flywheel mechanism. You have something that can feed on itself in a self-reinforcing success loop to the point where you can be an acquirer and acquire smaller businesses, or smaller or digital assets and what have you. So the point I'm making is you have the circle building. That's your first circle. It's a small ask. It's a seed ask. You build it according to the pathway of identity to a core insight, from insights to interactions, invitations, through a landing page, from invitations to interactions. And that's where it's in that interaction, in that process. Years ago, Dan Norris, who was I believe he was the original founder of Lead Pages, Dan Norris articulated the concept of the interactive offer. It's really valuable, even today when everybody's talking about Alex Hormozi's Grand Slam offer. Go see if you can Google the interactive offer. But the idea is the same as the ask method or various other similar customer validation methodologies. You surface the challenges, the gaps between the place where your prospects or your audience members or your customer wants to be and where they are. You have to make your own hypothesis, but on a small scale, you test it. On a small scale, you launch it. On a survivable scale, you ask. You test. And then when you see what the response is, you make the adjustments from there. So it's an evolutionary, it goes similar to the journey that we're talking about. It's a spiral success evolutionary journey. When you find the one that hits, then now you double down and you scale that up. The logic is the same, whether it's a circle or a community, or whether you're sparking a collective, autonomous, distributed movement. We are going to be teaching you at the higher tier of the September strategy, where you are certified, how to certify, and how to create basically imperial offers, world builder offers. Those are offers that you have to architect, you have to engineer them along the full spectrum of your customer's customer life cycle. So this includes train the trainer type of value propositions. It's a high tier, high ticket value proposition offer, and you'll learn how to engineer those. That's the way that we are going to be able to finance our movement. That's the way that we're going to be able to carve out a space for profiting by cohort. If you put all this together, what this amounts to is a formula for creating legendary cohorts according to your own context and your own priorities. It's not a one size fits all, made in guru land, um, framework, generic framework. You will have to go into the challenge vault. You will have to match the challenge to your context. You will have to customize the timelines and the terms, whether it's a 12-day streak or 12-week streak or 30-day streak. That will be up to you. You will have my guidance. You will have the guidance of those who have executed some of these challenges, but it will be up to you. The other games, apart from, you will learn how to play what we call station games, stacking games. You will learn how to play basically what some call Founders Club, but a sanctuary game. A sanctuary is a place of refuge and a place of protection based on the fact that it's a holy place. And so you have to learn how to build that sanctuary to protect your seed idea while it's still being validated. Because what you don't need is the discouragement of people who only specialize in survival games and who are willing to help you survive, but are not really about the success trajectory and the sacrifices that you must make in that direction. So you have to replicate and create your own protective community for that purpose. Separate from that, we talked about the 12 weeks of 12 framework and the fact that you have to, you becoming a competent world bender, thinking through, refusing to accept the timelines as you receive them, and instead imagining your way out of the timelines. It's a practice. It's a practice. And with the examples that we gave, you know that you can do it if you practice it. And it's not going to be a practice that you engage in for 1 week. That's not going to work. So I hope that this has been a shift. And I hope that this will be catalytic for your journey. And we'll look forward to engaging with you soon. All right. Bye-bye.